A wave of protest has begun inside the United States of America against Donald Trump for his calls for Ukraine to surrender to Russia. Moreover, these protests are taking place at the highest levels of government. The day before, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio unexpectedly refused to consider the 28-point peace plan as Donald Trump's initiative. He said the president supposedly has nothing to do with it. Moreover, today, a group of Republicans and Democrats in Congress publicly stated that after talking with Rubio, Congress might publicly declare that the peace plan was written in Moscow and simply handed over to Washington, and Trump simply presented it later as if it were his own. And now the White House itself is supposedly leaking information to the media that they didn't know anything about any peace plan until the very last moment. It's all just tricks and exceptions, mainly Witkoff and Dmitriev. Moreover, the issue of refining the peace plan is currently being discussed in Geneva, and there are already insider reports that the peace plan has changed significantly after negotiations between Ukraine, Europe, and the United States, and it actually takes into account some of Ukraine's wishes. Donald Trump dislikes this so much that he criticized Ukraine and Europe, but not Russia. For some reason, he has no issues with Russia. Which, once again, I think exposed himself. Excuse me, my name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and write any detailed comment under this episode. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. And if you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation or subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. So, today Donald Trump unexpectedly lashed out at the participants of the meeting in Geneva, meaning Ukraine and Europe, with criticism. And then his quote, "The Ukrainian leadership," by the way he puts leadership in quotes just like the Russians do, "did not express any gratitude for American efforts, and Europe continues to buy oil from Russia." Trump stressed that the Ukraine war, inherited from the previous administration, has cost millions of lives. The head of the White House added that the United States continues to sell a huge amount of weapons to NATO for distribution in Ukraine. That was a quote, unlike his predecessor Joe Biden, who gave everything away for free. And notably, Trump posted his message with all this criticism on the social network True Social, and right after President Volodymyr Zelensky announced progress during the negotiations in Geneva. Quote, "American proposals could consider several elements based on the Ukrainian vision that are crucial to Ukraine's national interests. But Trump's reaction is not accidental. He's nervous because he failed to forcefully impose this peace plan, which was written by the Russians. These are no longer my fantasies or just magazines or insider reports." This is now an official statement from United States senators. Senators Mike Rounce, a Republican, and Jeanne Shaheen, a Democrat. They made an official statement following a phone call with Marco Rubio, in which they made it clear that the peace plan proposed to Ukraine was developed and handed over to the Americans by Russia. Once again, the senators of the United States of America are saying directly that what is being proposed is a document from Moscow, and Trump is simply going along with it. And now a quote from Republican Senator Mike Rounce. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called us in the afternoon. "The speech occurred in the evening in America, but it was already night in Ukraine. I think he made it very clear to us that we are the recipients of the proposal that was passed on to one of our representatives, that is Steve Witkoff. This is not our recommendation, this is not our peace plan," says Rounce. "This is a proposal that was received, and as a mediator we took action to share it, and we did not make it public. It was a leak, it was not published by our members or representatives." Secretary of State Rubio made it clear that the opportunity was used to pass the proposal to the Ukrainians, and they will have the opportunity to respond to it. What do you think about such a statement? The senator is saying outright that this is not an American proposal. This is a completely Russian document. The Russians simply passed the proposal to the Ukrainians through the Americans, and let them take a look and respond. So, this is no longer a linguistic analysis, which we talked about yesterday in a separate episode, and it's not even some kind of insider information. This is now an official statement from senators of both parties following a conversation with Secretary of State Rubio. And now, attention! Let me remind you that the spokesperson for the United States State Department, Tommy Pigott, made a statement the day before that Secretary of State Rubio and the entire Trump administration have repeatedly stated that the plan was approved by the United States. And this is a joint effort between Russians and Ukrainians. The plan was developed by Vitkov and Dmitriev, after which Rustem Umarov flew to the United States and secured agreement. In response to this, Republican congressman, I emphasize Don Bacon, came out and said that some people would be better off resigning as early as Monday. For this outrageous buffoonery over the past 4 days, which has harmed the United States, weakened alliances, and emboldened adversaries, that was a quote. So the Republicans, I emphasize, in both chambers of Congress, have directly stated that this is some kind of buffoonery. If it's not an American plan, why did Trump claim it as his own and embarrass himself? Well, it's unclear exactly how such statements will affect the White House's position, but one thing is obvious. With this statement, Senators Rance and Shakin have essentially contradicted the official position of the State Department. That's a serious step, especially for the Republican Rance. It's understandable for Democrats, but for Rance it's a major move. Remember the Marjorie Taylor Greene story? After the Trump scandal involving the Epstein file, she said she would resign as Congresswoman in January and not seek re-election. That's it. Her political career ends there. But Rance's statement at least shows that the pro-Ukrainian wing of the Republican Party doesn't think very highly of all this and says that it's some kind of mistake. But that's not all. Senator Angus King added that Marco Rubio confirmed it. The 28-point peace proposal for Ukraine, which suggests the withdrawal of the armed forces of Ukraine from Donetsk region and the establishment of Ukraine's non-nuclear status, is simply a wish list of the Russian side's strategy, nothing more. As a result, all these statements forced Marco Rubio himself to finally admit it. Later, he writes on the social network X that the new plan was developed by the United States based on Moscow's proposals, as well as previous and current wishes of Ukraine, and is intended as a solid foundation for ongoing negotiations. But he still noted that it would be a mistake to call this plan Trump's peace plan. The fact that the United States plan is mostly a Russian initiative is also indirectly confirmed by our linguistic analysis, which we discussed in previous episodes. The English version of the draft agreement is simply full of awkward constructions. And here I want to urge you to definitely subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. Because just yesterday I wrote there that the White House has started to backtrack and claim that the plan isn't actually theirs. It's just a mistake. I wrote about this in my Telegram channel a day ago. Just yesterday, I made a post like this, quoting, "The peace plan was developed only by Vitkov and Putin's negotiator Dmitriev, and the Trump administration didn't know its details until the very end." Bloomberg wrote about this just the other day. And as a journalist with some experience, I have to say that these kinds of leaks, like, "Oh, we didn't know, it was just Vitkov," these kinds of leaks, it's a way of warming up the information field before a sharp change in rhetoric. Basically, it's preparing the information field through journalists. And that's a good sign. Read carefully, pay attention to what messages are now being thrown, seemingly by accident, into the information field in the White House through these leaks. Bloomberg sources say key officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, were not told the process details until the last minute. Bloomberg then casually reminds us that Vitkov has no diplomatic experience. And after negotiations with Putin, he did not accurately convey the terms of the ceasefire to Trump, creating a false impression of Russia's willingness to make concessions. There was also the Alaska meeting, which led nowhere. Now Bloomberg wonders, what if the same thing happens again? Well, it's just that Vitkov didn't convey something to Trump correctly. Well, there was a misunderstanding. Or maybe Vitkov leaked the peace plan to the media without Trump knowing. So where does that leave Trump? And Trump yesterday, or even the day before yesterday, said that this is a 100% final peace plan and Zelensky will have to accept it. The deadline is November 27. It's unclear if it will go through or face problems. And today, Trump is already saying that no, this is not the final plan and it still needs some work. What do I think about this? The thing is, while Ukraine and Europe were still in shock, the White House was hoping, to push through as much as possible from this peace plan by force. When did Zelensky make it clear that he wouldn't just sign it in silence? When the leaders of the European nuclear trio, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, quickly figured it out, launched a summit in Johannesburg, invited all the G7 leaders there, and declared that the plan was nonsense. When even the Republican Party, started to protest and unrest began to spread, the White House started pretending like, listen, it wasn't us, it was Witkoff who came up with everything, and Trump had nothing to do with it at all. Who is Witkoff? He's just a temporary special representative with his term ending in January. So, well, who says this is even the final plan? No, we're still going to work on it. Listen, yeah, that's Witkoff, the fool. He messed something up again. Well, you know Witkoff, he messed up last time, he messed up this time. Oh, that Witkoff, you know how it is. I mean, that's the kind of rhetoric I'm talking about. Well, Trump and his team saved face, didn't give up any positions, and just blamed everything on Witkoff. So friends, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.